Those things we understand now. I was able to get my appendix taken out, which would have killed me otherwise, because that's a rather useless piece inside my body. And that's left over from just the way that nature has developed such beings. There's no designer that's necessary.
One addition to that is it's wonderful to go through the biological textbooks and find out other species that are similar to us that have all the parts that we have, and then start going back even further, and some of them don't have some of the parts and other parts, and to see how actually evolution came to design where we're at right now. It's all in I lost my train of thoughts for a moment. It's all
the miracle of evolution,
survival of the fittest. Those people who maybe had an extra part or didn't have a big enough part at that particular time in their environment faded out, and those survived, kept on going. So that is not anything to do with social Darwinism right now. This has to do with the survival of the fittest, and that's part of it. Study it. It's a fascinating experience to find out why physically we are the way we are.
Yeah, so I screen recorded something that I just played now, and it brought up some thoughts that I wanted to comment about. Mentioned that the appendix, right, is pretty much a useless organ, referring to it, like the evolutionists like to say, as a vestigial organ, a useless organ that is no longer functional due to evolution. But at one point, when we were still monkeys or something like that, it had a use. So if we look at, anyways, it's wrong. There is a purpose for every single little thing that is within our body, every little organ, every little molecule, all genetic code, all purposeful, all useful. Okay. Now, for example, the gallbladder that collects bile and concentrates bile, which aids in the digestion of saturated fats, as well as other things. If you get gallstones, you can have that taken out, right? There are consequences to it, but it's not necessary. Therefore, we're going to call it a useless organ. They just didn't know, science didn't know exactly at one point when they were making those claims, or maybe they did, that in fact, no, it has a purpose among other things in the immune system. So American Scientific. I just cut off the title. Oh, sorry, Scientific America. Yeah, that's what the article was. Not going to read it all, but among adult humans, the appendix is involved primarily in the immune functions. Lymphoid tissue begins to accumulate in the appendix shortly after birth and reaches a peak between the second and third decades of life, decreasing rapidly thereafter and practically disappearing after the age of 60. Despite the early years of development, however, the appendix has been shown to function as a lymphoid organ, assisting with the maturation of B lymphocytes and in the reproduction of a class of antibodies known as immunoglobulin antibodies, IgA. Researchers have also shown that the appendix is involved in the production of molecules that help to direct the movement of lymphocytes to various other locations in the body. In this context, the function of the appendix appears to be to expose white blood cells to the wide variety of antigens or foreign substances present in the gastrointestinal tract. Thus, the appendix probably helps to suppress potentially destructive humoral blood lympho-borne antibody response. It goes on and on and on. So there is definitely a function. This small recording, the screen recording that I did at the start that I'm now commenting on, I don't know specifically those three speakers on the side of evolution, or morality, whatever they were debating in this one. Not sure what their jobs are, but I've seen plenty of microbiologists, evolutionary biologists making claims of certain vestigial bodies because it benefits their claims. At best, I will not necessarily refute the theory of evolution. I have a lot more to research on, and but I do claim that the theory of evolution is yes, it is merely a theory, that intelligent design has just as much arguments and evidence to support with the same amount, if not way more, evidence of an intelligent design. So there's a few thoughts that I want to also talk about. I just want to see, evidence does not support the theory of evolution. I might not have printed up something that I wanted to go through. Oh well, c'est la vie. I might continue. I think I popped it up on the screen, but no, actually it's right here. Evidence does not support the theory of evolution. As president of the Centre des études et de prospective sur la science, so Center of Studies and Prospective Science, Perspectives of Science, I guess if I translate it. So over here, number one, there's no empirical proof that exists that macroevolution, that is like evolution from one distinct kind of organism into another, is occurring at present or has ever occurred in the past. No one through recorded history has ever seen it. Evolutionist, anthropologist Jeffrey Schwartz stated in the book Sudden Origins that with the exception of Dobson Sky's claim about a new species of fruit flies, which would be only microevolution or a variation within the fruit fly species, meaning they managed to make what they would refer to as a new species of fruit flies, but nothing else but a fruit fly came from that fruit fly. We didn't get a new species, a new kind at all. So the formation of new species by any mechanism, it's never been observed, okay? And at least it was formerly called the theory of evolution. And I believe that the theory of evolution as well as intelligent design theory should both be taught in universities, not evolution being pushed and them justifying macroevolution, okay, by using microevolution, meaning they'll talk about the evolution of one kind from another, from a simple bacteria to multi-celled organisms to fish to go more complex systems. Even though at this point, if we look at all the different kinds of animals, there's some still what we would call less complex organisms. They seem to have not died out. It hasn't been a linear progression of more and more complex and less complex cells, bacteria, viruses that they would put very, very early on the evolutionary scale. They're still here. Okay, the primates, they're still here. So nothing but a primate pops out of a primate. Okay, there has been no primate that all of a sudden pops out even a gorilla. Like a gorilla that pops out a gorilla. It doesn't sometimes pop out a monkey, sometimes an orangutan, sometimes a chimpanzees. These are all species within a certain kind, and we'll leave it at that. So when we look at natural selection, survival of the fittest. Now, in survival of the fittest, if we're taking this worldview that all of creation through evolution is just survival of the fittest. It's a rough world out there. It's a dog eat dog world kind of thing. So in survival of the fittest, species must die out, right? So in a way, the explanation of where we were and how we got here to the human species was all about survival of the fittest. Therefore, death is the hero of that worldview. Other species that had to die out so that the one with a beneficial mutation is able to dominate, and then that becomes the species, because all the previous less fit, they died out, and we don't really see that. And because we have never seen this observed at all ever, what this theory of evolution claims, then time, if we just add an insane amount of time, for some reason that is the magic that makes it so. So we have death is the hero, and time is the magic substance that you just add enough time, and all of these wonderfully unscientific and unfounded presuppositions within the theory, they all work out. There's also the question of abiogenesis versus biogenesis. Life always comes from life. There's no, like they used to think, you had this dead carcass and all of a sudden worms would appear from it, spontaneous generation and stuff like that. We know that has to do with flies landing, putting larvae, and flies coming out of that. Actually, I wasn't talking about worms. I was talking more about maggots that are larvae. Flies, like they're not spontaneously generating. The flies went there, and laid those eggs, and the larvae coming out. When they explain stuff like, oh, if you look at these organisms and mechanisms, and then after you see that we see much more simplified organisms that are missing that, some of them don't have it, all this stuff. This does not justify, this is in no way a perfect way of demonstrating. Look at the progression of more and more complex species. If we would look at the intelligent designs that humans do at the moment, we have, let's say, a wheelbarrow with a specific function. It has wheels, it has metals, it has handle. Then after, we can look at a snowblower or a lawnmower, much more complex, has similar handles and wheels, but now there's a mechanism and gears and some motor now that's installed. There's this fluid, that it is a energy source, fossil fuel. Wow, look at the cars, way more complex than the lawnmower. And we could say that we appear, okay, humans don't exist, some alien race comes, and they can say like, oh look, these evolved, the primitive bicycle was before, and mutations occurred, just random mutations, just randomly, and all of a sudden, now we have a more complex, planes, like they must be way more evolved down the chain of evolution, and all of this, right? So it does not justify it, because we have a variety of intelligently designed objects that we use that have similar parts, okay, and that have completely different purposes, and that were created, though using very similar things in other objects, were created with a purpose. Okay, so no, telling me that the appendix is a vestigial organ, because we can look at other animals that have longer cecums, rumens and stuff like that. Now, if we look at it, there's a big difference between omnivore, digestive tracts, carnivores, herbivores, And this has nothing to do with one coming before the other, or organs dying out. No, it's like there's a purpose why ruminant animals are different than, let's say, a strict carnivore lion. And it is just a wrong assumption that cannot be proven. It's a fallacy to just say, well, because I see a a smaller appendix, that you know what, that this was something that became smaller and smaller over time because we weren't using it, and things like that. Again, abiogenesis means that life comes from non-life. So that's kind of the theory with evolution. You got the Big Bang, nothing created everything, and the elements were created, and the actual space that was for everything to happen wasn't created. So nothing created everything. And abiogenesis just claims that all of a sudden, because we added the magical time ingredient, that somehow this inorganic, organic, non-sentient became alive. So don't tell me that that the theory of evolution isn't built on assumptions. It still doesn't explain how life was created. It can only at best explain how theoretically life evolved from simpler life forms. But biogenesis, the genesis, the creation of biology, living sentient beings, just makes more sense because that's all we see, that life comes from life. We cannot create life from a source that is not living. So we also have macro versus micro. So if you look at macro, what in the universities, the smart scientists will always start using micro, which is variations being expressed between a kind, okay, or we could call it speciations. For example, like the finches that he saw on the Galapagos Island, and saw different, they were all finches, but different beak sizes and stuff like that. And that is just a variation within a species. It's not even a different kind of animal, it's just a variety of these finches. But he came to the conclusion, using just speciation, that this could be macro evolution, where everything's basically came from one extremely simple life form. Explain to me how, if this simple life form had less complex DNA, explain to me how more and more functional information was added to the DNA. Because what I actually see is that the earliest prototype animal, the first animal, the parent animal of the kind that we're speaking about, bird, fish, reptiles, whatever primates, whatever you want to look at, that is that inside of our gene pool we have something called epigenetics, meaning that not all of our genes are activated, but they are potentially there. So if you had a dog with all the characteristics of all the various different canines, or the cat, the feline, all the different varieties, and then people, had, dogs with long hair, shorter hair, everything, and they started breeding the longer hair with the longer hair, and that produced longer and they, shorter hair. All this could possibly be and we see that we're able to even reproduce speciation and microevolution. So it's quite possible that all of the potential variation was present, and that means that if all of that potential information and variation within that parent initial first of the kind, then that's a lot of information that is present. And the way that we start getting different varieties is actually from taking a dominant long hair, breathing it out, and breeding out the short hair information. So any speciation, any microevolution is in fact not a mutation causing more and more complexity, but evidence that there seems to have been extreme complexity, and as we are going down, like photocopies of photocopies of photocopies, our genetics are actually becoming weaker and weaker with less and less information. Again, I'm learning, okay? Take what I say with a grain of salt. I've looked into this, and this was prior to becoming Christian, maybe a decade ago. I'm a curious guy. So I started watching debates between intelligent design and evolution, and I was blown away. I had put a lot of faith, right? A lot of blind faith, meaning a lot of trust that was not investigated to see if I should have put that level of trust. So in a way, we're all people of faith, but I was blown away. I was ready to start laughing at some of these Christians that are trying to justify intelligent design and to justify creation instead of evolution. And I found that they had a poor deck of cards, the academic community. Yeah, I was shocked. And if you know me, I binge watch. I will watch every single thing I can get repetitively until it is so ingrained in my head that I can bring it up as needed in my own words. And that's what I'm going to do more and more with this. And hopefully look at some debates together. And I encourage you guys to go see those debates. But what I've noticed is that they will use microevolution to try and justify macroevolution. Every single transitional fossil or transitional species like Lucy, Piltdown Man, all of these have always been hoaxes. Piltdown Man, I believe, was just a mishmash of human and primate skeletons and stuff like that. We have Lucy, probably the more prominent. Lucy is mostly plaster around a few scarce amounts of bones, so that it's a lot of plaster and imagination again. But because humans, our society puts so much faith, blind faith, into science, almost as if it's somewhat infallible, and that it is never it's always benevolent. There's never malevolent biases or intentions behind that, such as perhaps career ambitions. No. So if any of you that are familiar with my channel, I have nutritional science being extremely poorly done, biased, and very, very deceptive. The way they use the poor science, and they use that on social media threads all over the place to push a narrative using titles and headlines that people will never even go see the studies. At best, they'll read the abstract or the conclusions. Climate science. They've been saying it's the end of the world for the last 43 years I've been on the earth. I remember being 8 years old about it. It was the acid rain, and then there was a hole in the ozone. Then there was Al Gore, and by this time everything's underwater. We're all dying. No more polar bears. Now they're starting with climate warming. Then they realized, well, why don't we just call it climate change? Because, well, climate is always changing, so we can just use random weather, earthquakes. So I'll just say, like, hey, it's this is all due to climate change. to push, again, the narrative. We see what is science infallible. Let's look at pharmaceutical and the health industry, universities, extremely corrupt, and there is a difference between science and scientism. Okay, it is become very religious. I trust science. I trust science. Okay, are you a scientist? Did you research the sciences, or are you just like the dumb Christians that go and listen to the pastor, don't even read the Bible, and just trust what the pastor's saying? Hey, you stupid Christian, stupid, simple-minded, gullible Christians. How many people, okay, go and find out how scientific claims are made? No, we listen to scientists just like Christians get criticized about listening to pastors, and we just trust that, of course. Why would they do that? I don't know. I don't know why. So again, survival of the fittest is instead of creation, we have a God that has created us with purpose and meaning. We are image bearers of God. We are unique and special in all of creation, and that makes the individual sacred. Okay, individual rights. Now we see that we've moved away, and we've no longer acknowledged God. We're not made in the image of God. We're just, we come from nothing, and we're pond scum, and we're just a bunch of monkeys, and there's no real purpose to this. This is just random chance. It's a dog-eat-dog world, survival of the fittest. So if the rule is survival of the fittest, therefore the powers to be here that believe that worldview, they will dominate us because they think that they're the fittest. They think that they're the most evolved. So through this, they are not looking at every single person on earth as sacred image bearers worthy of dignity, not being given dignity, but just by the fact of what we are, we have rights that are God-given. And so if we don't believe in that, and it's just evolution, then we can take everything now and change it into our image. We can genetically modify humans. We can genetically modify all of nature. We can genetically modify humans, animals, plants. We can change the atmosphere. We can change the human body with transhumanism. It's like, yeah, because you know what? No, God did not create us perfectly with a miracle of a complex body. No, we're just, blind chance got us here. So imagine if us smart people, then they acknowledge we're going to use transhumanism, we're going to incorporate technology into our biology, and we're going to evolve into, human 2.0. And of course that's going to lead to a utopia, because this was done by chance. Imagine now, right? Imagine now we're intelligent, we can create something. Meanwhile, everybody will easily look at a computer, understand that there's a computer programmer, understand that all these programs, there's a information in the back. There's in a way binary zeros and ones that are a long chain of codes to create this, but the brain, is much more complex as a processor. It has ACGTA. So it has 3.2 billion letters that are doubled. So in a way, there's actually double copies of 3.2 billion letters in our genetic code. So that's 6.4 in total. And I want you to go look at one of the largest books that you can get. Find out how many letters are in that book, and it's uncomparable to the book of life that's written within us. Now, you could look at a book, the complexity of a book and an instruction manual, and you can say, of course, it shows that there is an intelligence, there's information, steps by steps. This is, a blueprint. It's an instruction manual. So how can we accept that this is intelligent, designedly written, that all of these books and stuff like that, all of this, this ain't some leaf, that fell off a tree kind of thing. It's very complex. It's organized, and we know that somebody put this information in here. It was an informant. Okay, the information didn't appear here, and this is not comparable to the Book of Life, the genetic code within us. So why is it easy for us to say, like, oh, of course, a camera that I have on my phone. Of course, we created that. We're smart, we're intelligent. It shows that this is man-made. Well, look at the lenses in your eyes, okay? Uncomparable. Look at the electrical wiring with, these rubber sheaths that we use, our electric grid. Give me 1 second. All right, sorry about that. I had to answer the phone. I'm on break right now, so I got some time to finish this off, but I'm gonna have to maybe 10 more minutes. Okay, so we were talking about man-made things. The electrical grid, uncomparable to the nervous system, the myelin sheath that we imitate here, that cover the electrical wiring. The flagella, if we look at cellular microcosms, huge, complex cities and machineries and factories, insanely complex. The gears on some of these cellular motors and structures are mind-blowing, are more complex than our current motors. So we can see that nothing really is original. We haven't really done anything original. If you please write in comments if there's something that we have created that is not already seen and way more complex in the human body. Tell me if we've figured out to do something that is unique, because all of this stuff, everyone knows that this is not naturally found in nature. These are all things that are man-made, created, that are not as complex, and it just shows the disconnect here. Why are you basically, so resistant to something that's so obvious? And the Bible says that non-believers, people are without excuse. First of all, because God has a moral compass, because he is logical, moral, rational, among other things. Therefore, we have a conscience that speaks to us, even though we believe that there is a moral lawgiver, God, and atheists believe that morality is subjective, relative. The truth also, there's no absolutes really. Anyways, so what else do we have? Lucy, science, survival of the fittest, information. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Far from complete. Just a few thoughts that came to mind when I saw the video that I was looking at, the debate, and I lied. I think we haven't gone through a couple of points that were made by the Center of Studies in Prospective Science. So, first claim, there's no empirical proof that exists that macroevolution, that is evolution from one distinct kind of organism into another, is occurring at present or has ever happened in the past. No one through recorded history has ever seen it. No transitional fossils. If evolution had taken place, there should be or should have been a great many transitional structures preserved in fossilized form recordings, recording the stages of development from one type of organism to another. For instance, invertebrates are supposed to have transformed from vertebrates, having passed through many intermediate stages, but the fossil record does not document such transition. So if we are truly using good science, are we able to call it science if we are not physically observing? Because physical science is extremely useful. It's the study of the world that we see. But the minute we start getting into theoretical science, then it is exactly that. It is theoretical. And that's where evolution lies. Because we have never seen one damn thing that evolution claims happened in the past. Fact. So at present, what I'm saying is I'm not making a absolute claim that evolution is false, but I'm saying that the claims that of certainty and the amount of evidence that they are giving the impression that they have is seriously lacking and quite deceptive, pushing a biased agenda within the scientific community. And I know why. Because creation, intelligent design doesn't exist without a God. Maybe not a Christian God, but some higher intelligent being that is outside of time, space, and matter. Oh, yet there's countless millions of fossils, all of which are non-transitional. Professor Schwartz claims that instead of... Okay, I just want to make sure I press play. Professor Schwartz claims that instead of filling the gaps in the fossil record with so-called missing links, most paleontologists found themselves facing a situation in which there were only gaps in the fossil record with no evidence of transformational intermediaries between documented fossil species. Not only are the links missing, but professional evolutionists now admit they cannot even imagine how one species could be linked to another. Okay, that's Professor Schwartz's claim. In the American Scientist review of the book In Search of Deep Time by Henry G. and colleagues, we cannot identify ancestors or missing links, and we cannot devise testable theories how particular episodes of evolution came about. He's adamant that all the popular stories about how the first amphibians conquered the dry land, how the birds developed wings and feathers for flying, how the dinosaurs went extinct, and how humans evolved from apes are just products of our imagination driven by prejudices and preconceptions. There's no evidence of evolution at the molecular level. Even with DNA sequence data, we have no direct access to processes of evolution, so objective reconstruction of the vanished past can be achieved only by creative imagination. DNA and other genetic evidence as proof of evolution are found to be inconsistent with the fossil record and comparative morphology of creatures. The overall effect is that molecular phylogenetics is by no means as straightforward as its pioneers believed. The Byzantine dynamics of genome changes has many other consequences for molecular phylogenetics. I'd have to look what that is. And for a geological timescale question, evolutionary theory depends upon the great age of rocks calculated by geologic timescale. But this scale was based on principles of geology recently invalidated by laboratory experiments. The age of the universe, the age of the fossils, the column, with different areas, saying that was sediment laid over billions of years, instead of saying that actually all of these layers could be an explanation of a massive cataclysmic flood. Okay, when we look at the the ridge faults under the oceans. This huge, the Earth has a rip rips around it like a baseball. Looks like a baseball. The Bible does claim that it didn't rain for 40 days and 40 nights only. The fountains of the deep, massive subterranean water, busted out, okay, and flooded, and these were probably also what caused the break, massive earthquakes, and these formed layer and layer of tsunamis that laid different sediment. And there's something that's called, if you put sand, rocks, all sorts of different organic matter in a container of water, and you shift it, okay, eventually things will fall based on densities and things like that. And we can see massive dinosaur graveyards where similar animals are all found collected, and this is because there was waves of various tsunamis that would bury at different sediment layers. What I've read about that, the lectures I've seen, they explain it way better than me. Again, like I said, I can't speak with complete confidence here, but I'm highly skeptical. Highly skeptical. Feel again a little bit betrayed by the amount of confidence that the science community preaches to the public. And what else here? There's no evidence of evolution, like I said, at a molecular level. The geological time scale. If this fact had been known in the 19th century, Darwin would never have formulated his theory. Evolution depends upon geological formations taking millions of years to form. And Darwin's geologist friend Charles Lyell provided those years with the principles of geology. It is these principles that now stand refuted. New knowledge of geology allows the reconstruction of the original conditions in which the rocks were formed. These original conditions include the time taken for formulation and reconstruction. The time taken is shown to have been in weeks or even days rather than millions of years. See www.geology.ref.ac /BERTHAULT. Not sure if I can show you that. Not very well. All right, whatever. Evolution ignores laws of physics. The supposed evolutionary process breaks the most universal and best provided law of physics, the law of increasing entropy, known as the second law of thermodynamics. It applies not only in physical and chemical systems, but also in biological and geological systems. In fact, all systems without exception. The law stipulates that all systems tend to lose order. They go towards disorganization and loss of complexity. And that is what I explained, that there were all of the potential variations within these parent kind categories, these species, and that showed a high level of information and complexity. And as we start speciations to get all kinds of these different breeds of dogs, because we keep on breeding like characteristics with like, losing losing information. And this does make sense. What I just said and what we see is that things are seem to have been order. Look at all the ecological cycles, and they're all going towards disorder. All right,
it's quite possible that a supernatural being kickstarted this universe. It's also quite possible, and there's a small amount of evidence now that nothing was required to kickstart our universe.
Yeah, so just showed you another little excerpt where, again, he says, yeah, it's quite possible that nothing created everything. Didn't need anything to kickstart the universe and all its complexity and fine-tuning. Okay. Science.